So without further ado, Jim, we'll go till about 7:40 roughly. Give you about an hour or so.
Oh, less than an hour would be okay. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Then I'm sitting here to.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, it's nice to be among Apple folk. I spent the last 3 years out of the Apple industry. Sorry, let's go back a bit. I've been in the IT industry about 35 years. I own one of the largest Apple resellers in education in Victoria called Connecting Point, and the global economic crisis sent us down, and the bank I was with decided that they weren't going to support us anymore, and so I had to bring the administrators in. Once I brought them in, within 15 minutes they were selling the company, gone. That's 35 years of work. Okay, so that was, and a lot of my friends in the audience here were actually customers of mine. So that's what happened. I lost everything. I lost my house. I mean, really everything. My business partner went bankrupt, and they haven't bankrupted me yet. But we'll see what happens. So I moved on and got into the other side of the world with Microsoft, and did about 3 years of SharePoint development. Horrible product. Universities love it, so I had to survive. So I survived the last 3 years. And then this company came along and said, sorry, before that, I had a job for 6 months for another company, and my job was to build the company in Melbourne to become a fairly large company. They were a Sydney-based company. Currently, they're about a $30 million company in Melbourne. So I did very well. 6 months I took, and it should have taken 12 months. Took 6 months, and then I was out of a job. So I did a really good job. Stupid. Should have kept going for 12 months. And this place came along and said, okay, come and join us, and you're really good in what you do, blah, blah, blah. Let's build a company. So currently I'm in the process of hiring about 15 people in Melbourne. If you know anybody with really high-end, I'm really talking about really high-end technical people, I'm really keen to talk to those sort of people. That's my job at the moment. Working with a company called Somerville, and we're talking about the cloud. So when Les and others invited me to join this group here to do this presentation, I don't know what they really wanted. So they said, can I talk about cloud computing? Which is what I'm doing. I'm talking about cloud computing. So, welcome to the cloud. Is that what it's about? That's the cloud. Wow, keep welcome to the cloud. Hey, that's really true. It's not a revolution, it's actually an evolution. That's what we've been doing this stuff for a long, long time. People get confused about what on earth the cloud is all about. They think the stuff's all over the place. It's like, let's go back to this. Oops, sorry. That's where they think the data is, somewhere there. It's not true. We started, well, this particular company that hired me, Somerville, started in 82, building with places like Wang, which are no longer here with us, and of course with IBM, which is still with us. And we're talking about all this stuff that's happened all those years. So we're talking about cloud computing. This is where it's This particular presentation, one was to go to the cloud or to go to my Mac. The cloud will be stored somewhere in North Carolina, or it can be stored on my Mac, where I can store everything else and I can access things from anywhere around the world. That's what the cloud's all about. I chose to go to the Mac, but that's okay. I'll store the presentation later on the cloud. That cloud. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, is the issue I'm is security.
Yep.
I mean, who does it belong to?
Oh yeah.
What are the chances of them suddenly turning off, not giving you access to your data?
Yep.
Being a bit paranoid, I want to keep a copy of it online, but I'll have it up there. But why do I need it up there? Is that for easy access from wherever I am, or which home office, whatever?
Yeah.
So, for home use or small company use, why?
We'll come to it later. I'll actually answer your question a bit later.
It can be frustrating as well, because like today I altered something in my address book on the computer, and I knew I had a message on the phone that I wanted to add to that item in the address book, and it hasn't transferred yet. So you just...
Some wonderful questions, some wonderful issues.
If it's gone up to the cloud, why couldn't the phone be calling on the cloud and finding it?
Well, isn't the new Mac operating system with syncing things? Like it'll
It's
sync.
supposed to sync.
To the iCloud.
If you put something on notes
This was
here,
iCloud, and it actually took about 10 minutes before the item that I put on the
no, you
computer.
just start an email on one, then go to the other, and you can continue it.
Well, this particular...
Can we let Jim come get into the
That's okay.
rest of his talk?
We'll go into it. We'll go into that. We'll talk about that. Actually, the answers to both questions are really good questions, and in terms of the way we handle stuff and where the data is actually stored. It's actually a really important question to what you guys are talking about. Let's get to it. We'll get to it. That's not it. That's not the cloud. Or is it? No. That's the cloud. That's what we're talking about. So the issue with what you guys, both questions you guys asked was about where's the data stored. In the case of what you were talking about, it's stored somewhere, who knows. In the case of what I do, it's stored either there, if you're in New South Wales, if you're in Brisbane, it's stored there, and if you're in Melbourne, it's stored in Port Melbourne. That's the important part. And we'll talk about what the issue is with regard to taking data offshore. Because a lot of people don't, a lot of schools, for example, a lot of private business cannot take data offshore. So you talk about Google, you talk about, even Apple, stuff is stored offshore. And what's the protection of that stuff, which the question you asked? Well, there isn't any. Okay, or you've got a whole lot of other places that do that sort of stuff. If you lose your data, who cares? So it's a different issue between storing the data wherever, through whatever system, versus storing it with a local provider. Okay, which is really, really important. And it's really good, there's legislation to deal with all that sort of stuff. Okay, we'll talk about it shortly. So this is what our network looks like, and in terms of what we're talking about in terms of cloud computing. Cloud computing, we've got a data center here, you've got all the telcos, they're all sitting there and they go through the data center. You've got Telstra, you've got others that go straight into the data center. So all that stuff is sitting somewhere in the data center, whether it's in Melbourne, Sydney, wherever, locally. We better be local. That's the whole point. Okay, so that's what the network looks like in terms of where the data is stored. It's not a cloud. That's it. We're talking about servers. We're talking about switches. We're talking about blades. That's where your data sits, wherever it happens to be. It's cheaper if you keep it. If you're a Melbourne customer, then it's cheaper to go to the exchange in Melbourne, and with fibre, it goes to the Melbourne Exchange. That's what it looks like. This is our network. We have two ways of doing it. You've got internet, which is non-private network, which goes straight to the web, which means you've got a whole lot of problems with viruses and so forth. You've also got private network. We do it privately, so it goes to a private network, it sits there with all your data, and then you go from our private network through things like firewalls. People know what firewalls are? Okay, you sit there and it says, I can get in, no I can't get in. Yes, I can do this, no I can't do this. Okay, it's a firewall. I've got a virus, no, you can't go in. That's what a firewall basically does. We go through firewalls, then it goes out to the private network or to the public network, which is the internet. That's what our network looks like. Again, we deal a lot with private schools. That's our whole backbone's all private schools. Okay, we don't do public schools, they've got their own network. Private schools, we've got school A, school B, blah, 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 blah. They go through a private network, and then they go through what's called RNet, which is the university network, which is the data provider. They provide data. We choose them because they're cheap, and we connect schools to that. This is the way pipe works. Got a customer, pipe goes through here, and usually fibre now, thankfully, and it does all these things. Office 360 or 365, if you like, goes through there. You've got Adobe doing the same sort of stuff. Everybody goes online. That's the way the world's heading. Whether we like it or not, you know, you can buy Office 365. You buy it for a standard, 12 months, and then it goes on the web, so you basically access your documents anywhere around the world. It doesn't really matter where you are. That's the whole idea, the whole issue with regard to the web and with regard to what we're talking about. Okay? And virtual classrooms. So you can, in terms of teaching and learning, this is a really nice part of what actually happens with regard to the cloud. You can have a teacher anywhere around Australia and their data is on the web and they're able to access rich data. We're talking about being able to go YouTube, where schools have actually got the whole network open to YouTube, so students go and have a look at all the YouTube features, all the stuff through things like iTunes U, where they're able to access all that rich data and actually teach in a much more sophisticated way with rich resources. That's where the internet's going. So the industry trends are really interesting, very interesting actually, in terms of where the things are happening. We're looking at a growth rate in terms of where the internet's going with regard to cloud of a very, very nice 15.3% in just that area, which is effectively the growth rate with regard to compound growth in internet services, the cloud services. What's more important is that if you look at the other section up here, this is where the growth really is, which is a company like mine is doing really well, actually improving and making money. That's what we do. We're private industry. And of course, what we really need to worry about is what's happening with regard to customers. They're getting much more benefit out of the new technology. Do people follow that? Yep, okay. So why go to the cloud? What's the point? I've got everything on the computer. Why the hell am I bother going to the cloud? There are some really, really, really good reasons. I'll actually put this stuff forward at the moment, and then we'll deal to actually why we're talking about this stuff. This is what's happened in the web in the last 3 or 4 years in terms of viruses. And this is absolutely up-to-date information. Viruses, worms, adware, blah, 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 blah. It keeps going up. So, what's this got to do with going to the cloud? Let's talk a bit more about it. It keeps on going up. You think about a normal home user, this stuff happens all the time, okay? But we're more talking about an industry or a school or a large organisation. This is what's happening. Have a look at that quickly. That's real statistics. That's what's happening every single day. Every 49 minutes, data is sent to an organisation that's basically going to get infected. So why the cloud? Let's keep going. That's an interesting slide, that one. 144% increase in malware. More. 33% increase in infections. And that's over a period of 2012, 2013. So why the cloud? Keep on asking. Look at this stuff that's happening. So if you're a home user or you control your own network and so forth, this is what you're getting. Because you can't control it. Because it costs so much to do it. And this is really nice. Malware? Hey, anybody can do it. That's the problem. It's a huge problem. Nobody can stop it. So what we have to do is not stop it, but actually guarantee we don't get infected. So again, the question, why the cloud? We'll keep going to that. More. If you download PDF files, chances are, actually not on a Mac, which is the nice part about it, 35% of the files are infected. Okay. Actually, I'll show you some more stats about whether Macintosh versus the PCs are involved with regard to viruses. It's really nice, interesting stuff to read. This is what all the infections happen. Office, only 5%. Archives, 27%. Exec files, which Mac users don't have to worry about, 33%. PDF, 35%. On a Macintosh, not a huge issue. However, on a PC, it's an absolutely bloody huge issue. I can tell you. I was, when I started this job, I was told, I was given a PC, a HP. Beautiful HP, really, really nice. Got it home, I'm working from home office at the moment with broadband, and within a week I got infected with viruses, couldn't get on the web, blah, blah, blah. I lost 2 weeks productivity. On a Macintosh, I was up within half an hour running. Some of this stuff not important for the Mac people. However, the rest of the world still has a problem. 84% of organisations, malicious files. I keep on saying the whole thing, but why are we going to the web? Or why are we going to worry about the whole issue with regard to cloud computing? Every 6 seconds, a host accesses a site, malicious site. We keep going. More. Because they think there is a problem. Because my data is going to be somewhere else, I don't know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. We've got a long way to go. But what's the catch? There really isn't one. There really isn't one. You're paying people, if you're talking about a business, you're paying people to sit there and watch your network and effectively worry about all these other things we just talked about coming through. You put your stuff in the cloud, and you go out to a provider, and guess what? It's just a mindset. Get rid of the mindset, and you can get rid of people, which is a real problem in terms of unemployment and so forth, because you don't need IT people. And a provider does it all for you. And that's where it's heading. We talked about before about what was happening with regard to growth rates in terms of putting this stuff in the cloud. It's happening, but in Australia we're very slow. Total cost of ownership. So, let's look at somebody, which is the reality of what's happening in today's situation with regard to cloud computing. Okay? So, the Gartner report shows the 70-30 rule, or 30-70 rule. If you got $100,000 worth of service you actually purchase, whether you're a large corporate customer or a school, whatever, if you purchase 100 grand's worth, over 3 years, it's going to cost you this much. They don't see that. Because all they say is, I paid 100 grand. Okay? Or you can rent the stuff, put it on the cloud for 10 grand a month. Because this is the situation. We're talking about the iceberg. The iceberg is 3/4 underneath. You don't see that stuff. Okay? So what you're really talking about is you purchase $100,000, but you've got all these other operating expenses underneath there that you don't see them. Okay? They're all hidden. So you think you put 100 grand's worth and that's it. However, that's not true. This is what it costs you over 3 years. That's why you go to the cloud. You save money. You really save money. One of the things that people in businesses don't actually see is what it actually costs to run these servers in a commercial environment or a school environment and so forth. So the costs are, they don't see the fact that you actually have to provide power. Years ago I sold 100 Xserves to Monash University. That was lovely, lovely sale. It was over $1 million, actually $2.5 million. When the servers came in, Monash took them out of the box, put them up there, and they couldn't set them up because there was not enough power. They had to build a substation, all right, to put these bloody servers to work because this stuff didn't happen. They didn't worry about power because somebody else paid the bill. Whereas if you're in a small business, a medium business, you have to pay for the power. You look at the electricity bill, this is what it's about. It's really important. They don't see that stuff. And that doesn't include air conditioning and everything else you have to do into a server room. So why go to the cloud? Because you avoid all this stuff. It's not your problem. The problem with organisations like large companies, schools that I deal with, very large schools, you know, the business manager pays the bills, so the IT department doesn't see this stuff. They think it's cheap. It ain't cheap. Going to the cloud is actually cheaper. That's why we go to the cloud. Now, the important question is about what the questions up before here was about, you know, where you've got plenty of cheap operators out there who can give you cloud computing. So what are you going to go local for? Just go cheap. Well, no. There are heaps of cheap people. You know, my internet was, I'm running from home at the moment. I had a Optus broadband. It was down for 2 days because a backhoe dug up the fibre. I rang, guess what I got? Philippines. It'll be up in 2 hours, sir. 2 hours later, it'll be up in 2 hours, sir. 2 hours later, it'll be up 2 hours, sir. 3 days later, it wasn't up. If you know about fibre when it gets pulled out of the ground, You can't put it together. It's just not possible. You just have to start all over again. And it's just too messy. So why should I go local? Well, because we have our things like called the Australian Privacy Act. Have a read of that. That's really important. Where your data is stored is really, really, really important. You go on Google, you go on all the other stuff like that. The data's, who knows where the data is? You go with Apple, who knows where the data is with Apple? That's really important. More about the Privacy Act. That's why you choose local providers. Absolutely mandatory. If you take your stuff overseas, you don't know where the data is. Australian, the Privacy Act means basically if you held it in Australia, there are a whole lot of regulations about where the data is stored and who has access to it and so forth. If it goes overseas, you just lose total control. So with what we do, we covered the Privacy Act. Yes, within legislation. Buck stops with us. You give us a call. You call Sydney. You don't call the Philippines and so forth, which is really important. We've got all the jurisdiction in Australia only. So this is a plug for Somerville / I'm not selling you anything because I can't. Okay? I mean, you guys are not my clients. I'm here to present because I want to, but not to sell to you. Okay? So I'm just telling you about what my company does in terms of the web, in terms of cloud computing. That's what we're talking about. And we can keep going with the Privacy Act. You've got to know where the stuff's stored. It's stored locally. It's not stored overseas. That's the biggest important thing you have to think about. More Privacy Act stuff. Most people don't know about this stuff. The Privacy Act's really important. That's all I've got for you guys. I'm absolutely love to take questions. Please. Absolutely.
You mentioned that PDFs are a big vector
Yep.
for malware.
Yep.
How are they loading it and carrying it through a PDF?
How they're doing it?
Yeah.
Well, it's actually quite simple. They load the PDF with a virus or with a contamination on there, and so it's actually, when you open it, that's how it loads to your computer. Doesn't affect the Mac all that much. PCs, absolutely. Does that answer your question?
So it's carried within the PDF file?
Yep, absolutely. It's embedded in the PDF file. On a Mac, not a huge problem, which is nice.
Yeah, how much redundancy do you have built into those systems?
Redundancy, in terms of, you're talking about network services? 99.9%. It's bloody good.
To me, it's just another backup.
Yeah, it depends how you do it. It depends how you do it.
All right, what do you do when your site goes down?
Well, it doesn't go down.
No, any building will do. Any building will do.
Okay, so the strategy is to have, if you're, for example, if you're a corporate customer,
Yep.
you have 2 links, one for a backup and one for your normal stuff. So what you're doing basically is you're going back to the data center with your first backup. And that data center goes, well, hang on, let's go back a step. If what happens is if a backhoe comes in and rips out the fibre, you're buggered. There is no backup. But the issue usually is about...
Backup, you can't access it.
Well, yeah, that's right. You can't access it. You're absolutely right. So what most people do is they go have 2. Okay? Well, sorry. You can back up from one place to another place. And that's what a lot of people do. Or you can get back up to the cloud. If you back up to the cloud, it's all managed for you. So you've got things like all the services with regard to storage, with regard to copying, blah, blah, deduping, all that stuff, it's all done in the cloud. have to worry about it. But when the backhoe hits the fibre, you're buggered. Usually, not that long. Sorry.
Are all your customers connected with fibre to?
No.
They're using Wi-Fi.
Yeah. What an interesting question. So our customers in the regional areas are second-class customers. Okay,
so
so
relying on whatever the telcos are.
On the telco, so either you've got things like Telstra, Optus is involved, places like Big Air, which is the wireless people that go for miles and blah blah blah. But if you live in a regional centre like Warragul, for example, I had a really interesting question. I had a guy who rang me and said, "I'm in Warragul. I've got 2 sites, 2 schools. I want to connect this school and this school together. Currently, we're using it was actually a wireless network between the 2, based around technology was, and it doesn't really matter." He said, I've got a friend who told me that I should join you guys because you're much cheaper. And the friend he was talking about was in Ballarat. Ballarat's now the hub for all the government going in there, all the technology. So we've got fibre in Ballarat. Yeah, NBN, almost. So in Ballarat, it's cheap. In Warragul, guess what? It's really, really, really expensive. And so you say to the customer, "Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, you're in Warragul. I'm sorry, I can't help you because Telstra's not there, NBN's not there." NBN's a huge problem. So yeah, we've got to. The problem is that regional centres are paying at least 3 times as much as the cities with internet access, and it's not fair. Sorry, next question.
What happens to the data if some of it falls over?
No, it's not a problem. It's stored in the cloud. Yes, it's well, no. So no, I understand the question. So if Somerville goes bust, the data still stays in the data centre. These guys in the data centre are publicly listed companies, so the data's still there. It doesn't matter.
How do you get the data out?
Oh, you just call the companies. It's not an issue because the data is yours. Okay, it's not an issue.
So do you have special software licenses so that you are running some of the software in
the
your
cloud
services? So like Microsoft 365.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got filtering software which allows us to monitor exactly what the website is. So in the case of a school, for example, we can monitor through the IP number which kid is accessing which site. We had an issue with one of the schools, a very, very large private school, and they had a 200 megabit per second network, which is quite large, and it was really going to a halt. We've put a monitoring software in there, found that the kids in the boarding house were downloading large files, movies, at night time. That was crashing their network. So yes, we've got special software to monitor exactly. You can actually say, this is the IP number, this is the kids using this thing. Or in the case of an organisation, this is the person using this particular site, whether it happened to be a porn site or whatever, you can actually monitor everything. So we monitor all that. So I didn't answer your question before, did I, with regard to what you guys were asking for, if we fall over?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Because when a company goes broke,
Yep.
no one's then interested, no one's
Yep.
got any money to pay.
Yep.
So here, all the stuff's in
Yeah, okay.
the factory,
Yep.
how do you get it out?
So we deal with the companies we deal with data centres. They're absolutely huge. They're public listed companies on the US Stock Exchange. Come to Australia, huge companies. The way the contract is with the companies, not with us. So we go, it's with us, then the companies. So if we fall over, you still have access to all your data. Does that answer your question? No? Okay, so
What are you saying? You're just a retailer?
we're a wholesaler. We're a wholesaler. We buy their stuff. Okay, so if we fall over, we've been going for 23 or 40 years, so it's not a problem about falling over. However, if we actually fall over, all your data is stored in a data center and you're able to access that data through the actual data center managers. Okay, so you don't lose your data. Yes.
So if they go bust.
If they go bust, well, then you've got a problem.
Yes.
With chances of that happening,
No.
who knows?
It happens.
I don't have an answer to that question. If they go over, they go over. But you know, it's like the chance. The public listed companies I would deal with, they're worth billions and billions of dollars. If they fall over, it's like everything else. What do you do?
Jim,
I guess one of the things.
Jim, I suppose from a lawyer's point of view,
Yep.
is the contract actually a three-way contract? Are there three parties to the contract? So that when you say you would have access to the data center.
Yeah.
Does the contract actually include the ultimate consumer having a right to go to the data center?
So the contract it depends what you do with the data center, or we're talking about internet access. So the contracts are usually with us,
Yes.
with Telstra,
Yes.
and the data center. So it's a three-way contract that goes through that.
So there's three parties to the contract.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that clarifies it, because
Yeah.
if it's a two-way contract, it doesn't give you direct
No,
access to the data.
it's-
If it's a three-way contract,
That's right.
then if the contract is worded appropriately, then it should.
That's right. And ultimately, Telstra provides the contract. So if Telstra going down, you know, it's pretty minimal risk, really.
So I guess one of the things with public listed companies is that they can be taken over by overseas companies,
Yeah.
and that in terms of, you know, scale,
Yeah.
they might decide to then transfer the stuff out of Australia,
Yeah.
and then you lose the protection
Hmm.
of privacy laws and things
Yeah.
like that.
Well,
So,
who knows that stuff? I mean,
Yeah.
really, that can happen to anything we deal with. So you know,
yeah, I mean, if you sort of think something like Dropbox or something like that,
yeah.
I mean, that could be bought by the Russians at some stage or something like that, couldn't it?
Let's not go there with the Russians tomorrow.
The Russians are not
Yeah.
popular at the moment.
Now, the companies we deal with are US companies, so you know, chances of the Russians buying are probably not pretty good. So I don't know the answer to your question. Sorry.
I hear a lot about doing backups online
Yep.
to services such as yours.
Yep.
The biggest impediment is the blasted bandwidth caps that the
Mhm.
local providers
Yep.
put on. Are you all doing anything to try either to go around the caps, or is some way
Yeah.
that we could actually do a reasonable backup to a cloud service?
What a great question. So the way we do it is that effectively, you can do your own backup, which basically means you go tape, the old technology, or you go from site to another site, okay, backing up over the web. With the technology with regard to cloud computing, you take a snapshot of all your data, you back it up once, and then effectively it dupes and dedupes in the cloud. Very, very simple.
Yeah, but if I look at what because I run a local backup every
Yep.
day, I'm backing up 3 to 4 gigs a day.
Yep.
I only have 100 gigs a month.
Yep.
I use it all on backups and nothing else.
So,
That's the problem, that any kind of reasonable usage for backup,
so the issue,
the
this,
kind of bandwidth caps you have.
okay. So the issue is going to be with regard to what your bandwidth, okay, what your data limits are. Most institutions I deal with have got 100 megabits or 200 megabits. So it's not an issue for them at all. For a private customer, it is an issue.
Yeah.
And we don't deal with smaller customers like that. We don't do retail. We deal with large institutions that go 100, 200, 500 megabits per second. And it's not, for them, it's not an issue. They just have, with their backup, particularly with private schools, they use a software for their accounting system software, which is all backed up every night, straight to the cloud, because they can't trust their own systems to do it. Just go straight to the cloud. And it's usually 100 megabits. Sorry, 100 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's all it is. And it just goes bang, straight into the cloud. It's all backed up. It's all, backed up again. Not an issue. So if you've got any problems, it just happens. especially with also with a lot of schools are running Office 365, which is all cloud-based. So if your internet's down, you can't use Office. So kids sit in the classroom wanting to do Word files, they can't do it because the internet's down. So that's why they have a backup service. They got two services, one for the normal stuff and one second for the Office 365 plus Adobe or whatever else. More questions, folks? Sure.
You spoke about local providers.
Yeah.
The cloud.
Yeah.
You didn't name any.
Local providers?
Yeah.
Well, we can ISNet or someone was one of them. But look, you're talking about home consumption?
Yeah, home consumption.
Yeah. No, there aren't any. Seriously.
Just overseas companies.
Yeah. Well, you go through through the normal stuff that the normal providers for home stuff. We're talking about more about corporate or school institutions. Home providers, just go to your normal web provider and you cop what I do. You go with Optus, and then when they're down, you go and ring up and you get the Philippines. Sorry. When we're talking about NBN coming through, is it going to improve? Probably not. Not in the current legislation anyway. Well, whatever the legislation is, who knows? With the current government, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sorry that poor old Malcolm Turnbull has to actually, talk about how wonderful it is when he actually doesn't believe it. Sorry.
I want to ask, for your customers,
Yep.
you give them not only backup, but
Yep.
do you also give them protected internet, as it were, where they don't have any problems with the viruses and everything?
Yeah, so we have a software for UTM, is what you're talking about. Yeah. So UTM is a product that allows you to actually stop all the virus and stuff coming through. Okay, we have a software product that is extremely good. It's built by the of all places in Israel, and if the Israelis don't know about protection, nobody does. It stops all that sort of stuff happening, right down to the IP number, right down to the student, in our case, using what particular software they're using at a particular time, whether they're going to porn sites, which presumably most porn sites will be filtered anyway, so kids can't get to it, in what I do in terms of my customers. But it's really nice stuff in terms of going right down to saying, okay, here's the IP number this kid's using, and this is the site they're accessing. So the IT manager has got a chart up there that can see exactly what every user is going through.
So your customers are never going to get a virus?
No, ever. No, because it goes to the firewall. It goes through the filter firewall, through the UTM, and goes up here to the firewall and says, okay, I've got a problem here. Okay, this product is not getting through because it's got a virus. We identify the virus because it goes through a firewall. So everything goes through this side is all say, yeah, it's good stuff. It goes through up here. Say, sorry, it ain't going to happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we just go back to the PDFs that you said
Yeah,
about
sure.
the viruses
Yep.
attached to them?
Yep.
When you go into Safari and you try to download a PDF,
Yep.
it always says, it's the first time that you
Yep.
do it, it says, do you trust this?
Yep.
Does that, if you say trust and you happen to put on a bad one,
Yep.
is anything going to come through?
You're an Apple user? Are you an Apple user? Don't worry about it.
So the viruses are all...
Because it's all done within the background within Apple technology, so you won't have a problem. In most cases, you won't have a problem.
So why does Safari have this message of trust?
Oh, it's just it's just the way that Apple do things. But I mean, with Apple, so the nice part, truthfully, the nice part about Apple is that most of us are pretty lucky using Apple technology because we don't get viruses. It's all blocked within the operating system. Whereas Windows is a real problem. I think there's a slide before I showed you 84% of viruses go through Windows. And that's the way it is because the system is so open. And the fact is that most people use Windows, although it's changed a hell of a lot. That people attack Windows machines, but Macs are usually pretty safe.
And on the phones, it's gone through to the Android things as well.
Android's a real problem.
Androids have got a lot.
Android's a real problem.
Yeah.
It's an absolute real problem. Whether it's on a PC or on a handheld device, Android's a real problem. Too many gaps in the system, and they haven't solved the problem. It's like going to Windows.
So is Windows 8 any better?
No, Windows 8's worse. Windows 9 might actually solve the problems with Windows 8. You never know. We all wait. Well, we don't wait actually. We're Mac users, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's horrible. Absolutely horrible.
So you try and persuade the schools to get Macs?
Actually, you go out there and we have a lot of what they call BYOD, bring your own devices into schools, and most of those BYODs are actually all iPads. That's what's going into schools. And the biggest challenge with iPads and BYOD devices, as it were, is that, there's several challenges. Firstly, there's a challenge about equity. If you're going into the people I deal with, not a problem. They're all private schools. They've got plenty of money. But if you go into a public school, which is an issue with regard to equity, parents can't afford it. And kids are told, you need to bring an iPad. And you pay $500 for an iPad. Well, there's the issue of equity about who can, who can't. And it's a real problem. It's a huge problem. And when they go in there, then you have a problem with putting all these devices on the network. And that's where the stuff that I do is really important, because we solve the problem of saying, okay, here's a kid, here's an iPad outside the network, here's the IP number of the iPad, or the what we call the MAC directory, and it goes bang, straight on the network, providing the network administrator gives them access to it. But the issue of equity is huge. For me, it's a real problem. I don't know how we deal with that. In a private school, not a problem, because parents got money. I don't know what else to say about that one.
Maybe they don't because they're paying fees.
Oh, mate, I've been there. I was a private school parent. I can tell you how much it costs. Absolutely huge amount of money. And to be forced to bring in a laptop or an iPad now, it's actually good, because it's $600 versus $3,000 for a computer. But still, in public schools, the issue of equity is huge, absolutely huge. How do you justify, if you're in a school, how do you justify saying to all the parents that you've got to bring your kid's got to be in year 9 and need to bring an iPad? What if I can't afford it? How do you justify that? So you've got half the students using it, half not using it? Huge problem. Sorry. That's my political views.
Jim, just going back to your
Alan?
viruses
Yep.
that could get attached to something, come up to your firewall.
Yeah.
What's the, hypothetical, what's the responding back to the initiator? Someone who inadvertently created something.
Yeah.
How does that fit back to that initiator?
Yeah. Very good question. So we had Geelong Grammar, very big private school. They've got this fantastic software that they're using to block viruses and to tell them if their server's been infected or not. So we had a virus 2 or 3 weeks ago, I can't remember what it's called, and one of their servers was infected. And so our software said to them, hey, you've got 35 servers, 34 are okay, this server's infected. And the guy came back and said, well, how can this be? All the other servers are fine. We've got all this fantastic software to stop this stuff happening. How can this be? And guess what? They hadn't put patches on their server and so forth. That's how infected. But the software actually lets them know that, bang, your server's infected. That's from our side. That's what we do. Which is a nice part about, to making sure that the firewall was there, yet the server's still infected because our software missed it and the server software wasn't up to rate because it hadn't been updated and it got infected. But at least we were able to say to them, guess what? This slipped through our firewall. Does that answer your question, Alan? Yeah. Folks, nothing else? I'm sorry I haven't bored you that much.
Well, would you put your hands together and thank Jim? We'll stick around for.
Yeah, absolutely.
the
Please.
evening.
Yeah,
See
absolutely.
what
Yeah.
happens next.
Yep.